Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, May 12th, 2021 Chatham Airport Commission meeting. We are starting at 5:01 p.m. This is a remote participation only meeting, and there is a live broadcast on Channel 18 if you're interested in following along that way. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Section 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Airport Commission is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410 with the conference ID of 859-601-180 followed by the pound sign, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. If that's a commissioner's dog, please take care of that. I'm going to take a roll call, make sure we've got everyone we need to have. I do know that Commissioner Donovan may be a little late. Commissioner Burke? Here. Commissioner Cortese?
Present.
Commissioner Donovan, I know, is going to be a little late. Commissioner Galen?
Here.
Commissioner Owens?
Present.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Here.
Thank you. And Commissioner Harrison is here. Thank you. The next order of business is the minutes from the April 14th meeting. Does anyone have any questions regarding those minutes? Any comments, any edits, anything? The document has been looked at and edited. I took a look at it. I didn't find much. If anyone else saw anything, let me know. Otherwise, if I don't hear anything in a little bit, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of April 14th.
So moved. Motion. Second.
Okay, it was moved by Commissioner Galen and seconded by Commissioner Cortese. We will take a roll call vote. Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan? Sorry. Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Minutes pass. Okay. Moving on, we have public announcements and agenda item requests. Before we get into our commissioner reports, just as a moment, just take a quick moment. Those of you who are not commissioners and listening in, please mute your microphones unless you want to talk, and then we will recognize you. And then put your hand up. And when we recognize you, don't forget to unmute. Also turn your video off. Not that we don't want to see you, but it just crowds the screen. Okay, so we will go ahead with our first person. This would be Mr. Buckley. Go right ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm speaking at the proper time.
You are.
Is this the point at which we would be commenting on the environmental assessment, or
No.
not?
No, the public comments on the environmental assessment will come at a later date. This tonight is just a discussion among the commissioners with regard to the document that we received, which we will then send off to the FAA. And then that will open up once we get information back from the FAA, it'll open up a 30-day window for public comment.
And the 30-day window is an FAA public comment period, or
As far as I know, yes.
as far as you know? Okay, well, then that's the comment I'd like to make, is that for an agenda item or in conjunction with that step, it needs to be made more clear to the public and hopefully the commissioners as well, exactly when people get to ask questions about the environmental assessment, clarification questions, and then when they would be able to then make a statement once they understand more fully after questioning it, when they would be able to comment on it, whether that's done, the whole process, whether it's done once with the airport commission or once with the FAA or both times or whatever. I think if there was a chart, a one-page chart that people could look at and see when they would be able to ask questions and when they would be able to comment
Okay.
and what the FAA requirements are, then that would clear up a lot of confusion that I think people misunderstand about how the process works. So in order for it to be meaningful, according to the town's public participation policy, it needs to be meaningful then, and that should be cited to a reference to the town's public participation policy. Not the
No,
selectmen's.
we'll
Not the
do our
select-
best to do that. I thought it was pretty clear from the published information that this was just for commissioners to look at, even though we put it out there. It's the only way we could do it to avoid open meeting law issues. But tonight is basically our night, and the public's night will be down the road a little bit.
And so if that's made clear, that would be great. But if it's
Right.
not made
We
clear to the
also-
public, then it doesn't matter. It's meaningless. Thank
We
you.
also have a representative tonight from the FAA who will probably be weighing in on the engineer's report with regard to the EA at some point, and he may address that at that time. So,
Okay, having worked through the
we're good.
FAA, I would like to ask the FAA questions. I think I might have some coaching
But we
questions.
won't have time for that tonight. That'll come at a later
Okay.
time, like I said.
Okay, well, it'll be nice to be able to ask the FAA questions ourselves, like before, but anyway, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Please mute and turn your video off. Thank you. I'll be with you in a minute. Mrs. Gibbs.
Yes, thank you. I'm a little confused here. Is this the time for public comment on agenda items?
This is for future agenda items or public comments on new business items.
All right. I'm not sure if this is the same question or the same agenda item that Steve Buckley was talking about, but with regard to the wildlife hazard management control plans, that was a big document in there. And is there going to be a presentation on that tonight?
In terms of,
Well, are you going to talk about the specifics about removing wildlife from the area, including depredation? Because I
think we'll probably hit that when we get to the public comment section, not tonight, but down the road.
well,
may
I
come
mean,
up,
it's in the
since
packet.
the,
So is there?
Since our consultant is here tonight and a representative of the FAA is here, he might be able to address that. But we're not opening it up to the public tonight. It's only commissioner discussion.
Okay, well, before, I would just ask you to make sure whoever makes the presentation that they define depredation for us, because that was a pretty scary document as far as I could see, because they said, there's going to be a lot of harassment of the wildlife. And if that doesn't work, it says depredation normally uses a shotgun. And I am wondering, does that mean you're going to scare them with a shotgun or are you going to shoot them? Because I think this needs a lot of town discussion about the extent to which the airport's going to go when there is a natural wildlife habitat there. And, it sounds like the smallest squirrels are going to take a hit because they are food for larger predators. I mean, this is no small deal. So I hope we get some real specifics about this and that they just don't go off and start doing it unless there's a lot of public discussion.
No, don't. That's not going to happen.
All right.
That's not
Thank
going to happen. I'm sure when we get to that point, I mean, we haven't had to do it in the past. So I don't think it's going to start now just because we have a document. So I think, that will come up, under, when public reviews later and we'll be asking for probably emails with questions so we can have them available before we, have the comments in front of what we're doing.
As long as tonight, if they make a presentation, if they could say what the scope of depredation is and the extent of it, I would appreciate
Well, I'm sure they're listening, so perhaps they can comment on that this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we have, I'm not sure who CEB is, so I can't address you by your name.
Yes, good evening. It's Carol Bliss.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Huntley, on May 11th of last year, I witnessed an incident that was reported to the FAA and the commissioners. I did receive some comment from Mr. Howard about what it was. And then at the December 9th meeting, you mentioned that we should trust you to answer all our questions. I've been trying to ask these questions since May of last year. I've received a couple of emails from you saying I would receive the answers to my question in writing. And your April 10th agenda had my name with it crossed out and saying that my questions to Gale Associate, Mr. Costello, Mr. Howard, and Mr. Donovan would all be answered in writing. That has since disappeared from the agenda of April 10th. I still have not gotten a response to any of these questions, and I have documentation from you on looking at the date, March 16th, that I would get the answers to my questions at the end of the week. So when you say submit your questions, we'll answer your questions, I think that's very disingenuous because the questions don't get answered and the can gets kicked down the road. And I'd like to know why.
Unfortunately, I can't answer that, except that as far as I know, we're still waiting for some responses for a couple of the people who you had questions for. That's all I can say. And I apologize for not following up on this in a more timely manner. But right now, that's where it is. And I will make sure I expedite this for the next meeting as best I can, or send you an answer, a response between now and the next meeting. And I apologize for the delay.
Thank you for that. But I would like to have my questions go on public record at this point, because I feel like the fact that my name now has disappeared from your agenda item, it's kind of got lost through the cracks. And I just feel it's very disingenuous. And it doesn't take a year to answer 4 questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll do it the best I can to deal with it.
I would like it as public record, my questions.
I wrote it down.
Writing it down, I'd like to see it happen. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Selectman Kokolas.
Hey, thank you, Huntley. I just want to ask you a question. It's a process question. First of all, let me say that, yeah, I understand why the Airport Commission might have to have a working session among themselves. My question, though, has to do with, because you have said that you kind of follow the process that the Board of Selectmen use. on the, especially on the easements area, is the public going to be able to speak before it goes to FAA? That's one. And if not, is that, I assume, I've heard that it's done has been done previously. Is this a process with an FAA? Or is it, can you take another time and allow the public to process to speak before it goes to FAA? And the FAA respect is there. So that's a process question, and I'm not trying to push you in one direction or not. But on the Board of Selectmen, when we have a hot item issue, we have public input before we make a decision.
Right. This is, as far as I'm concerned, not concerned, as far as I know, this is an FAA process that we are following, that this is a draft discussion, or that the draft is just a draft at this point. We are going to discuss it tonight. If there are any additions, deletions, changes that will occur, we will then submit it to the FAA, and then we'll get it back, and they will either accept those changes or not, and then we'll be bringing it back for public comment. After that point, I believe there will be other chances for the public to weigh in and offer their opinions, and perhaps even at that point, maybe some changes could be made. I see our engineer, Mr. Karen, is on. He might have an answer for you with respect to that, a little better than mine.
Oh, great, thanks. I'll get on off, and I normally watch you and stay out of sight. I just needed to ask that question, though. Thanks.
Well, he's probably going to give you an answer.
Okay.
So don't go away too fast.
Well, no, I'm not going away. I'll be on most of the night.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey there, Huntley. Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on what you just said. So I want to be, crystal clear that as part of the development of this draft EA, although Gale Associates is the author of it, we are very much working hand in hand with the FAA in the background on the development of this document. So what I'm looking for this evening is I sent the draft EA out to the commission in advance because I'm looking to get their input and make sure that there are no questions or comments or something I may have neglected to include in the EA, and I want to be able to review that with the commission and then go back and work those issues through with the FAA. And then following this evening's meeting, we're going to work with the FAA to make sure that we're putting this document out for public comment. What that looks like, we're anticipating probably at least a 30-day comment period where we'll accept comments via email. I'm assuming the commission will be the recipient of those emails. They can pass them along to Gale Associates and we'll address those. And frankly, take a look at those comments and see if there's merit and if there's something that needs to be either further addressed in the EA or if it's something we'll just take under advisement. And then at a subsequent airport commission meeting, it's my understanding, not to speak on behalf of the chairman or the commission, but it's my understanding that there will be further opportunity for the public to comment and provide their input to the airport commission at a future commission meeting.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Matt, and I appreciate that. It's a little bit different process than what you might have, let's say, in town government. That's what people are used to it. But if they get plenty of opportunities before a final decision is made, I think that's important. They have to understand the process and how that works. And I guess that's all I'll say. And I'll leave it to you guys. Thanks.
Someone has their mic open and we're getting a lot of feedback. So if you could please mute your mic or turn your volume down or both, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Next online here, we have someone, Dave, I guess that's Mr. Bixby.
You guessed right. Hi, Huntley.
Hi there.
I logged in late, but I guess you're talking about the environmental assessment. I'm trying to figure out how.
Just only as an agenda item.
We're getting that feedback again.
I know.
I'm curious how when the Cape Cod Commission considers the master plan projects as a DRI, there's going to have to be a public hearing on the projects. How does that play out in with respect to the environmental assessment? There just seems to be a lot of steps in the review here that are all kind of independent of one another. It seems like there should be some coordination.
As
Does
far as
does
I know, and perhaps Mr. Karen can weigh in here if necessary, is that the master plan does not need review by the Cape Cod Commission. Only specific projects as they come up, if it's deemed necessary for the Cape Cod Commission to weigh in.
Huntley, that is correct. So at this point in time, all we have is conceptual projects that we're evaluating. There's nothing, we're not looking for any permits. We're not looking to push anything before the Cape Cod Commission at this point in time. If and when the opportunity arises where the Airport Commission moves forward with, let's say, vegetation management removal or vegetation obstruction removal, and there are required permits that fall under the jurisdiction of the Cape Cod Commission, we'll certainly have to go before them and obtain any necessary permits and approvals that would be required prior to doing obstruction clearing.
Does that help, David?
Well, I think I've done a lot of reading on the Cape Cod Commission, and their bylaws or whatever, their regulations, whatever they are, they're pretty clear that an airport master plan and its projects be considered in their entirety, and that a transportation project of this type, airport improvements, requires a DRI assessment and review, and that requires a public hearing, and that has to be done not piecemeal, but consider the entirety of all the projects in the process. It just seems like that somehow or other, it seems to me the environmental assessment and the DRI review should be coordinated somehow. I guess maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's not the case.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Okay, let's see, who's next? Commissioner Wilcox, sorry.
Oh,
You can write your name in there, you know.
yeah, I know. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. I would like to request that at next month's meeting, enough time be allocated for the public comments on the EA.
It may be next month, but it may be the meeting after that, depending on how fast we get the return from the FAA.
Let me finish what I have to say, Huntley, please.
Sure.
Since tonight's meeting allows only commission review and comment on the EA, please explain to me when the commission plans to provide public comment on this very important issue as required by the FAA before the finalized document is sent to the FAA.
I can't give you a definitive answer. Like I said, it depends on how long the FAA takes to review what we do tonight. And then they have to get the document back to us. And then as soon as we receive it back, the public comment period will start, and we'll notify everyone through the town website that
Again,
probably at the next meeting, we'll say, yes, it's out there, and we'll have comment probably starting, and if that's either June meeting, probably in the July meeting.
I appreciate that, Huntley, but what I'm requesting is that the public comments be done before the finalized paper is sent to the FAA, because it's required to have FAA, or excuse me, it's required by the FAA to have public comment before the paperwork is submitted for its final, and it's not an approval, but it's final submission.
I understand that. We're not submitting the final one tonight. We're submitting our draft with the changes to the draft. It's like consider it like a markup. We're going to go through it tonight. Whatever questions you all have read and seen over the last month or few days as you've had this, remember I sent it to you all early. Whatever markup that we put together tonight, we will send that markup to the FAA. That's the draft. They will either accept or reject our changes, whatever it is, and then they will come back with us probably within the month, I hope, maybe not. I don't know what their time frame is. And we will, at that point, we will make the announcement that the EA is now ready for public comment.
Why can't we wait until next meeting to have the adjustments made, and then we review them, have public comment, and then perhaps some of the public comment may be interjected into the paperwork? Because there's a lot of people out there that have some valid points about this EA Huntley.
I can't dispute that. I agree with you. But that's the process, is that we get a draft off to them tonight with our comments. Tonight, this is our night to
Okay.
get the changes, not the public's night. They will have their chance down, as I said earlier, down the road, either next meeting, if we get it back, or July.
Then one last question. Does that mean that it may be readjusted with public comment involved? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, say it again. I was trying to write a note. Go ahead.
Does that, what you're telling me, and I understand this is for commission only.
Right.
Does that, and you're submitting it, does that mean once it comes back from the FAA and we do have public comment, that public comment, if it's valid points, can be or put into the EA in its final submission?
If they have merit, sure.
Okay. Because again, the commission officially has until July 1st to submit this whole stuff, but
Where did you get that date?
huh?
Where did you get that date?
The master plan. That
It has
was,
nothing to do with that. This is a separate document.
I thought that all that needed to be on. Well, I do know that the FAA gives us a 12-month extension if we need it. So if there's a deadline, we can get an extension due to COVID on any of this stuff. Thank you.
Okay. All right, having no more questions, we'll go on to commissioner reports. I will go at the end. So Mr. Burke, could you please give us the revolving fund report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the past month, the rental lease, we had $3,168 in rental lease receipts. We expended $139.84 for personal services. Those are for the payroll members. We purchase of services for the month was $6,149.42, leaving the year-to-date figures at debit. Year-to-date debit is $58,407. Year-to-date credit is $36,650, with a negative balance of $22,756. The capital outlays year-to-date, it's a debit of $876,958. We've been credited to date $177.06, leaving a negative balance of $706,252. And that's it.
Okay, I might add before we vote to accept the revolving fund report that there is a lot of money in the pipeline for reimbursement. So those negative numbers that you see in the revolving fund report are still out there waiting for reimbursement from the state, from the FAA. I believe those will be coming in soon. I've been signing a lot of documents that release those funds. So I think, down the line that deficit balance will be lessened. Anybody have any questions on the revolving fund? Okay, if not, I will take a vote on the acceptance of the revolving fund report. Commissioner Burke?
Second. I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Second. We got a second. Okay. Commissioner Burke? revolving fund report, yes? Okay. Commissioner Cortese,
Yes.
by the way, Commissioner Burke said yes. Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
by the way, welcome. Commissioner Galen,
Yes.
Commissioner Owens,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrison says yes. So we have the acceptance of the revolving fund report. Okay, next is the fisherman storage area. Commissioner Owens.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going to just talk about the wildlife hazard assessment and the need that we're going to have to terminate the fisherman's storage area. And all the commissioners had a letter in the package, a draft letter. Wondering if anybody had any comments on that?
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, after you're finished, I'll make my comments. Or do you want me to make them beforehand?
Right now, it's fine.
Okay. Wait a minute, I've got to go find them. Mr. Okay. I move that the commission
Well, are
delay.
you making a motion or are you making a comment?
Well, it's both.
We're not, well,
Okay,
Mr.
I'm
Owens,
gonna wait
Commissioner
until,
Owens isn't done with his report yet.
okay, that's why I want to wait till he's finished. Thank you. I apologize.
It's okay. Commissioner Owens, you have anything else?
I have no comments on it. There's, it's unfortunate that we have to close it down as a fisherman's storage area, but that's the direction from the FAA, and the draft letter that's in everybody's package is pretty informative, has the information in there. And we've discussed this several times before. If none of the commissioners have a comment on this, then I would move that the commission terminate the use of the fisherman's storage area and issue the required 180 days written notice per section 13 of the area's regulations to the town of Chatham. That would be the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen.
Commissioner Harrison, I'd like to, I'll try and figure out how to write this or read this without.
Would you like to second his motion and then we can discuss it?
No, I would like to make my comments now.
Go ahead.
I move that.
But let me get a second for his motion first.
Seconded. Second.
Go ahead. Now we can have discussion. Go ahead.
I would like to request that the commission delay by 18 months notifying the fishermen of ending the storage area lease. During this time, the commission can investigate, review, and implement improvements to what's included in the wildlife hazard report, which is things like fencing, netting, invasive species removal, and other measures that would allow the continued use of the area by the fishermen. And I'd like to ask for a second on this, but would anybody second this motion?
Well, we have a motion on the floor. I can ask if we want to, the 18 months is an awfully long time. We've been going at this since the year 2015 with the, as you noted in the letter, with the from the FAA with regard to the land use of the airport, and that land use examination they did back in 2015 was recommending that we close it. Now, we worked with the harbor master, we worked with the fishermen, and we've gone on and on with this, and we finally decided, and in a discussion, I had a discussion with the harbor master and the town manager and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen several weeks ago with regard to this issue. And the only way we can move it forward is to put this on the table with them And it's in our rules and regulations that they are there at will. So with regard to the regulations we have for that area, the 180-day period should give them ample time to remove the items and get that area cleaned up, because it is a hazard. And the wildlife hazard management plan indicates in several areas that this needs to be cleaned up.
I recognize that with reading the in that portion of the report. However, I have had several calls from fishermen with concerns about this. And I just need to finish this. The blue economy of Chatham is dependent on our fishermen, and that's a big portion of our town. And the fishermen's ability to operate their businesses. Off-season storage of gear is a big issue for fishermen. As I mentioned before, there are other options, like putting up a graded fence, overhead bird netting, ground covering, or even installing a gravel-based permeable pavers that create conditions where the area could continue to support the community. I feel the commission should review all options, which I don't think they've done to date. And this, because if we put it through now, it's going to create a serious hardship and be a major distraction for fishermen, which are a large portion of our working environment. And I'd like to hear comments from other commissioners on this.
Okay, the floor is open.
I feel is good. Go ahead, Mike.
This has been on the table for well over a year in front of the commission. We were having public meetings back at the annex when this began in earnest after the original wildlife report the draft of it first came out. This is the first time someone's ever even talked about options potential for cleaning it up. There's been no suggestion from any of the fishermen or the harbor master, to my knowledge, of how to rectify the situation in a timely, cost-efficient manner. I don't know if anything you said, Susan, would even work. And to go 18 more months and potentially, continue to ignore the FAA's ruling on this doesn't make sense unless there's something very legitimate that could be done.
And I might add that the grant assurances that we have with the FAA are involved in here, maybe not directly, but certainly peripherally.
Yeah.
One comment I'd like to make on the wildlife in general is we're also protecting the wildlife, and that's the important part. To have them nest near an airport is dangerous for them as well. And that's a valid concern, I believe.
I would like to just mention that the wildlife hazard management plan was completed in January of last year, over a year and a half ago. And within that report, they suggest the fishermen, discontinuing the fishermen's storage area. But again, as Commissioner Geisler just discussed or mentioned, there's been no discussion of trying to do some alternative plans so that we can keep this. I am saying that, excuse me, I've had a lot of comments from the community concerned about closing this.
Excuse me, I didn't say there's been no discussion. We've had a lot of discussion on this topic. There have been no suggestions like the ones you brought tonight, prior to tonight.
And I'm putting the suggestions forth now. And they're valid suggestions on mitigating some of the issues. And if I can't ask for 18 months, then I'll ask for 12 months. But I'm requesting that this not be submitted at this point so that we could look at some other viable alternatives. And again, this is with the fisherman community interest involved.
Go ahead. A question I have on this. So Mr. Garland, you'd mentioned that there have been no suggestions from the fisherman or the harbor master, correct?
That,
And
to my knowledge,
I've been on the commission for 6 months. I've been following this, but not closely. So I'm just trying to gather some information.
no. We've had nothing like this presented, any conceptual plan like that.
And we
So,
will, go ahead.
so Commissioner Wilcox, who's been presenting this information, and do we have a detailed plan that we can work with?
Well, give me a year and or even 6 months, and I will do it.
Well,
I have not been involved with the commission long enough. This letter has been drafted and finalized, and I'm sure that the introduction of the termination of the area has necessitated and caused people to be concerned and think of alternative plans to mitigate the issues. And I'm requesting we have some time and not submit this letter now. I said 18 months if you want. Give me at least 6 months.
Can I ask a question, Commissioner Wilcox? So it's been out there for
Ms. Wilcox, sir.
Miss Wilcox. I'm sorry. How would you like to be called?
Ms.
Ms. Okay. I apologize for that. If it's been out since January of last year, as you pointed out, how come we haven't had anything up to this point?
It was completed in January of 2020. This is the first
Correct.
time that I have seen it. So it has not been submitted to the commission nor to the public for viewing.
It's
Okay?
been on our website. The wildlife hazardous plan has been on the website.
We had, the harbor master attended our meetings and we had a discussion with him in public on this very subject. And just, look, you're right, the fishermen are an important part of the economy in Chatham and the culture of Chatham. But now, having said that, the place was a pigsty, was a disgrace, and it was ignored until we forced everyone's hand and had to clean it up. So you sit here telling me how important it is, yet I wonder by the way it was handled for the last several years, if it's truly as intrinsic in how they operate as it might be. Because I would have thought if it was so important, it would have been utilized for what it's supposed to be, storage of fishing equipment, and not the junkyard that it became.
Then Commissioner Galen, I'm requesting 6 months to see if we can mitigate the issues. That's not a long time.
We hear you, but we the motion's on the floor and we'll see where it goes. Commissioner Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've been dealing with this for many years now, and I think the best way to support the fishermen is to push this letter forward and force the issue and have the town help us find them a new location in town that makes more sense. I mean, you're just going to keep kicking this down the road forever, and then it's going to be a real issue. So I think the best way to support everything is to move this forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Owens, your hand's up.
Yes. This has been going on for a long time, and unfortunately, or fortunately for the airport, if we can find a better use for it, unfortunately for the fishermen, but we're directed by the FAA to remove the storage area. I feel like the town has quite a bit of town-owned non-income producing property, and if it was cleared, I think it would be better accessible than up in the woods there down a uneven road. Anyway, it's unfortunate that we have to move forward with this. It's not a surprise. It's not a secret. And it's way overdue, I think. And I think that with maybe some help from the select board, that we could locate a better piece of property that could be cleared properly and set up before it's being used, for the fishermen. I'm all for supporting them and finding a place for their gear. But up on the airport property, that has to stop.
Well, then can I request that before this letter be submitted, that the town be required or request town manager or whomever we need to find an area that's suitable, to make sure that it's suitable so that the fishermen can have access to what the space they need?
They'll have 100, they'll have 180 days to do that.
But what if they, Huntley, what if they don't find an adequate place? Can we at least wait, give 30 to 60 days for the town to find a place? That's not unreasonable.
We're giving them 180 days to find a place.
No, you're terminating them in 180 days. This is a letter of termination.
That's the same
There's no
thing.
other option, Huntley.
I got two people, Commissioner Cortese, you're up, then David and Commissioner Donovan. Hang on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Huntley, Chairman Harrison. I just want to say I'm in full support of the fishermen as well, being a recreational fisherman and also being in the town since I've been 3. It's a fabric of the town, same as the airport. And I been flying for over 20 years, or about 20 years, and I can say most of the time when I come in on runway 24, I look down and I can see the state of the area. So I think, and I question the access as Commissioner Owens brought up. I think there's probably, and also viewing from the air, there's probably a great spot in town that's an easy access that can be set up. And 6 months is an ample amount of time to get that set up. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Owens and then Commissioner Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think by voting on this and getting it rolling would actually be a benefit for the fishermen. Hopefully it would promote the select board and the town manager to jump in and help us or help the fishermen find a place that would be probably far more suitable than up where it is now. And it's
Okay.
not, we're not the bad guys.
All right, Commissioner Donovan.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Wilcox, thank you for your comments this evening. I'm sure we'll work out depending on the vote coming up, I'm sure we'll work out an amenable solution for everyone, I hope. Okay.
That's speculative, Huntley. I appreciate your listening to my comment.
Thank you. Can I have a motion then?
We have a motion on the floor, don't we?
Oh, we actually do, yes. And I can't remember who seconded it.
I think.
I'm sorry, who?
I think I did.
Commissioner Gallon, I believe. If not, I'll second it.
Okay, I think you're right. I think Mike seconded it. Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Burke? Commissioner Burke? Yes. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox?
No.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. The motion carries 6-1-0. Okay. Thank you very much for your time on that. I appreciate it. Moving on, public relations, Commissioner Galen, anything to report?
Nothing, not much. I've narrowed it down to 2 agencies that I've talked to, and I've gotten packages from it. At the next meeting, I plan to put together a presentation to the commission on those 2 agencies to see if we want to go forward with getting some help on public communications.
Okay. Anybody have any comments on public relations? Can I have a motion to accept the public relations report?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. So public relations was Mike Cortese, and second, Susan Wilcox. Okay. Roll call on that to accept the public relations report. Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrison, yes. Okay. 7-0-0. All right, moving on. Commissioner Cortese, do you have anything?
Not this meeting. Thank you.
Okay. And Commissioner Wilcox, do you have anything under
I-
community other than what you've mentioned already?
I covered one of them. The other, two other concerns are, the one concern, major concern is that issues that have been brought up as agenda items have not been covered. And I believe that Carol Bliss already reviewed that, but that is a concern.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I don't know if we need to accept, well, do I have a motion to accept the community report?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, MC. Okay. Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
To accept the community report? Yes? Okay. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wilcox?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep, and Commissioner Harrison, yes, so it carries 7-0. And now we'll circle back to my report. I've just got a couple of things there. On April 12th, I attended a meeting with the planning board. I believe Commissioner Galen was in on that meeting as well. And we discussed the RPZ in the West Chatham Community Center area. It was a good meeting. It took a long time. There are a lot of questions regarding that. My major concern, obviously, is the runway protection zone, AKA the RPZ, and how that might be protected from further development based on the recommendations in advisory circulars from the FAA. I told Catherine Halpern, who is the chairman of the planning board, that the Airport Commission would be working collaboratively with them to come up with a viable solution to that area, as well as however we might be helpful with the rest of the West Chatham area with regard to zoning and future development. So I think she was, when I told her about that, she was amenable to having us work with them. That's as far as it's gone since that first meeting that I attended. But I know that we will be involved going forward with the planning board to come up, as I said, with a good solution for that area. I have one other comment to make, but is there any comment on what I've just said? Anybody have any comments on that? Okay. A good segue to that, I'd like to speak to the ad that was put in the paper several weeks ago by the Community Speaks group. And Mr. Whalen, if you're there, could you put that up on the screen, please? Mr. Whalen, are you there?
She was.
Yes, are you seeing the ad? I'm sorry, I just tried.
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet.
Let me try one more time here. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay. This is the ad that was put in the paper a couple of weeks ago. It talks about the runway protection zones, and it, in a sense, it sounds very reasonable, and it sounds like it's feasible to do. However, I just want people to know that even though might be easy to shift runway thresholds and accomplish what you might want to accomplish there, first of all, I don't think it would work. I don't think with a 3,000-foot runway, I don't think pilots would pay attention to it. And I think that that we need further discussion here. And what I've done is I've asked our engineer who has researched this for me to come up with some comments on this, on the RPZ and what the FAA allows and doesn't allow in that area. Now, granted, before we go on to that, we cannot enforce anything in the RPZ because it's not our property. The only thing we can do as an airport commission is work with the planning board and anyone else zoning who is involved with zoning to try to mitigate issues for future development. Granted that area is already developed to some degree with businesses and residences that probably shouldn't have been there to begin with.
Right.
But as I've said in previous meetings, that's in the past. So we've got to figure out what we can do going forward. And I think if we can come up with a suitable solution with the planning board, so that, for example, if say Job Lot goes out of business and a developer comes in there and wants to put one-story houses, well, that's something we've got to protect against because that's not something that the FAA would allow in there. So that's the kind of thing that we want to, have rules and zoning that protects that area and obviously protects the people in there as well. So if Mr. Karen, if you're there and could weigh in on this, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Huntley. So I am here. So yeah, you'd asked me to take a look at this. I think particularly where this ad calls for displacing the thresholds that the RPZ essentially would be fully contained on existing airport properties. So, and just going through the FAA advisory circular, I mean, the FAA AC makes it pretty clear that protecting the RPZ is best achieved through airport owner control over the RPZ. And control is preferably exercised through the acquisition of sufficient property interest in the RPZ. So, acquisition of land is an AIP eligible cost. It's pretty clear, like I said in the advisory circular, that the FAA would prefer that the airport own that land that's under the RPZ. Not that the AC necessarily gets into displacements for RPZ purposes, but they do speak to displaced thresholds, and it does say while threshold displacement may be used as a solution for constrained airspace, airport designers need to carefully weigh the trade-offs of a displaced threshold. So in the case of Chatham, what I did was a little exercise to figure out if the entire RPZ was shifted so that it was on the airport property as it exists today, that would equate to an approximately 815-foot displaced threshold on the runway 6 end, meaning a reduction in landing distance from 3,001 feet to 2,186 feet. So inherently, this would have a major operational and safety impacts that the FAA would not be able to ignore. They would certainly have an opinion on that and weigh in on that. The AC further goes on to state that this guidance should not be interpreted as an FAA endorsement of the option to displace a runway threshold. Threshold displacement should be undertaken only after a full evaluation reveals that displacement is the best alternative. So again, in my opinion, displacing that runway threshold only introduces an even greater safety risk than the existence of the development within the RPZ, as you're now eliminating a significant amount of runway length for pilots to land on. And Mr. Chairman, again, and it's just my opinion, this would be an awful solution and would be a detriment to the overall viability of the airport. And it is not a decision, in my opinion, that the Airport Commission would be able to make on its own. You'd have to, solicit the input and the buy-in and the support from FAA and Mass DOT.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I hope that clarifies things. I mean, I'm sure there are people listening who don't like what they just heard, but that's where we're at with this. And like I said, we're going to do our best working with the planning board to come up with a viable solution to future development in that area, specifically with regard to the RPZ. That's it for me. Can we entertain a motion to accept the chairman's report?
Motion to accept.
Can I get a copy of that ad? I'd like to just see it a little bit more clearly.
It's in the April 22nd Chatham Chronicle.
April 22nd.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, we had a motion. I didn't catch it. Who was it?
Yep, motion to accept.
Okay.
Second.
And thank you. Commissioner Burke? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen? Commissioner Galen, you're muted. I need a nod or a yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Yes.
Okay, and Commissioner Harrison, yes, that carries 7-0. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, we're moving on to the airport manager's report. Airport manager Tim Howard is on vacation, and in his stead will be his father, Tim Howard Sr. So,
Oh, wow.
as he's affectionately known, Big Tim, go ahead.
Okay, I'm talking to you from Utah here, and I should get you a little background here. That's a little better. Yep, I'm standing in for my son here. So first of all, you have the guard report for 2000 for April rather, and it's I think you have the slide up there. It's where is it? It's 1531. If there's any questions on that, let me know. Number two, the airport again is supporting the Chatham Fire and Rescue by providing some of the land use for their ditch trench. They come out and they dig a big ditch there and do training drills for getting people out and things of that nature. They've done this before previous years. I don't think they've done it every year, but it's definitely been done. Usually down by the hangar, there's some area down there that's not in use. Number three, the airport grounds. It's that time of year that bowling operations have commenced seriously at this point in time. We'll see a lot of that going on. A reminder, the NDB maintenance funding by Mass DOT ends this June. And I think, Huntley, you have a point about that later on.
Yeah, we have a bullet point on that coming up. Yep.
Right. And number five, the airport again is participating in Chatham Merchants Association Oars in the Stores scavenger hunt for charity. It's kind of like they did the whales, kids to come around, and this time I believe their oars are painted, and the kids basically come around to different stores and places in the town to check off the box for the scavenger hunt. And then they auction off the paddles or the oars at the end to make money. So the airport's going to support that again. And the only old business we have is crack ceiling still really needs to be looked at for the H2 hangar ramp. And that's the airport report. And your airport manager should be back tomorrow.
Oh, good. All right. I
Any
hope you had a
questions?
good, relaxing vacation. I hope you're having one too out there.
Yeah,
Looks like it's a
we
beautiful
climbed
day.
a lot.
Beautiful day in Utah.
It is. We climbed a lot of mountains. We're
Oh, God.
tired.
Okay, I bet. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to accept the airport manager's report?
Can I have
Motion to
I have a
accept.
question, Huntley?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When is the number 5 the date of that gonna occur? Is there a date on that or not?
Yes, I don't know it off the top of my head, but yes,
Okay.
it's coming up quickly.
It's coming up
Will
quickly.
say,
Yeah, it's like Sharks in the Park.
right, right.
You
So
know,
is it
same
in
kind
May
of thing
or
that they do.
Is it in June? May, June?
It could be. I don't know. I'd have to look at
Oh.
the paper. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just-
we'll send you an email, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the airport manager's report?
Motion to accept?
Second,
Okay, that's SW seconded. And who, I didn't notice who said, who's first? Who made the motion?
Mike Cortese.
Oh, Mike. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Burke? To accept the manager's report? Yes? Thank you. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox?
yes.
Yes, and Commissioner Harrison, yes, it carries. Good enough. Okay, moving on to the engineer's report. Mr. Karen.
Hello again, Mr. Chairman and members of the Chatham Commission. So the only real item, again, this month is the environmental assessment. Huntley, as you know, I got this off to you so you could send this out in advance. I'm hoping that folks have had an opportunity to read through it. If it's okay with you, I'll just give a broad brush overview of the different sections in the EA and just some preliminary findings that we've discovered through the process, if you don't mind, and then I'll entertain some questions if that's okay with you.
That is absolutely fine. Go right ahead.
Yep, sure. So first and foremost, what we're including, the different sections that are in the EA include an introduction. There's the proposed action, which was identified in the airport master plan. There's the purpose and need. There's the project alternatives. So we've evaluated alternatives against the proposed action. We've ultimately come up with a selection of preferred alternatives. There's an environmental consequences section, which evaluates the 14 environmental categories as required per FAA Order 1051F. There are mitigation measures that will be implemented during vegetation obstruction removal, particularly where it's concerning wetlands. So that's a critical component to this as well. As far as the preferred alternatives go, the first one is the removal of obstructions, which are isolated trees on 21 parcels located in the runway 0624 approaches. This would eliminate those specific trees that are penetrating the approach surfaces, thereby eliminating a known safety issue. This alternative enhances safety for pilots, passengers, neighboring properties, and aircraft. It complies with FAA grant assurances. Flight Procedures is able to design a GPS approach under that alternative, and it enhances the airspace safety by providing a more accurate, direct, and unobstructed approach to runway 624, thereby flying over fewer homes than aircraft do today. The other alternative, sorry, not alternative, but the proposed action was the designation of airport property for the development of hangars. We've identified 2 T-hangar buildings, approximately 22 units that would be privately constructed. This would be constructed as demand warrants for hangars. Some of the preliminary environmental impacts that we came across is, so the proposed action, which is the vegetation clearing, may include a limited amount of clearing in a designated natural heritage endangered species program priority habitat area. So Gail and the FAA had preliminary discussions with NHESP. The limited amount of work within the priority habitat was not of significant concern, so long as we're protecting the water quality in the project area and preserving the understory in the buffers within the priority habitat area. We have proposed mitigation measures and best management practices, so this should be achievable. But ultimately, we'll need to coordinate further with NHESP as part of the notice of intent process prior to any sort of vegetation management activities. With respect to the vegetation management itself, so vegetation management is not new to Massachusetts airports. And in fact, in 1992, Mass Aeronautics began a long-term vegetation management program to assist public use airports in complying with federal and state laws while maintaining a clear airspace. So subsequently in 1993, there was a generic environmental impact report for vegetation removal activities in wetlands at public use airports that was completed. The GEIR, that generic environmental impact report, it evaluated probable environmental impacts as a result of clearing within the wetlands. And so following the initial clearing efforts, monitoring was conducted, focusing on vegetation regrowth, wildlife habitat, overall health of the wetlands. And so a lot of that information is concluded and highlighted on page 12 of the environmental assessment. And just to be crystal clear, so there will be some local permitting requirements necessary to do any sort of tree clearing that's proposed within the wetland resources, particularly where there's a vernal pool in the runway 6 end on airport property. Some of the other things that we discovered, we've talked about this at past meetings, is the bike path. So as part of the environmental assessment, we filed a notice of proposed construction or alteration through FAA's obstruction evaluation airport airspace analysis to evaluate the existence of that bike path and its concurrent use alongside of the airport. At the back of the document, I believe it's in Appendix A, is the findings from the FAA. There's no objection with respect to the existence of the bike path, which is great news. We did conduct an archaeological reconnaissance survey out there as part of this process. Again, we've discussed this briefly at past meetings. There's an area on airport property that is considered potentially archaeologically sensitive and would require further examination prior to future use or activities of that area. Fortunately, for the purposes of the obstruction removal that are in question today as part of this EA and the hangars, those archaeologically sensitive areas are not located in any of those areas where we're proposing projects at this time. So I will certainly keep the Airport Commission abreast as we move forward. If there's any plans or proposals to construct in any of those archaeologically sensitive areas, to make sure that we're, taking any sort of action that might be required prior to any implementation of a project. Sole source aquifers, I want to touch upon this real briefly. The airport and the vegetation management areas are located within the Cape Cod sole source aquifer. The proposed vegetation management is not anticipated to affect the groundwater within the work areas for many reasons, as we've noted in section 6.2 of the EA. And further additional measures to protect against groundwater contamination will include the avoidance of widespread clear cutting, no stripping of soil, appropriate erosion control measures, and vehicles will not be stored or fueled in or near wetlands. I can't make it any more clear to the commission and anyone else that's listening. This is not a clear-cut activity. We've identified very isolated trees on some of these parcels that are off airport property. And in some instances, it could be 1 or 2 trees or a small grouping of trees that needs to be removed out of the approach surface. And again, like I said, Mr. Chairman, we're not looking to do any clear cutting, and I'd be happy to address further questions in that regard. And then sort of the last piece that rounds out the environmental assessment that I touched upon is the mitigation measures. So there's, like I said, a dedicated section that speaks specifically to those, what we would be proposing to mitigate impacts to the greatest extent practicable, whether that be to wildlife or any animals or the vernal pool or wetlands. We do not go in and destroy wetlands. We do not have the authority. We would never get permits from any of the regulatory agencies to go in and quote unquote decimate wetlands. Typically what you'll see is we'll go in and we'll remove trees that are penetrating the approach surface or trees that are frankly within 10 feet of the approach surface, and you turn that wetland habitat into more of a shrub environment with smaller saplings as opposed to some of the larger trees that are known to grow within the wetlands. So that's all I really have for a broad brush overview, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if the commission has any questions, but I'd be certainly happy to entertain those. I do know that Richard Doucette of the FAA is on the call this evening and is willing to answer questions as well.
Okay. Commissioner Wilcox, go ahead.
Matt, you were talking about endangered species program. There are 2 areas. Where are they specifically located?
Are you referring to the natural heritage endangered species that I referenced a minute ago? Yeah. So if you give me 1 second, there's a graphic that I included in the document. Let's see.
Just curious. I didn't figure that one out.
Yeah, no problem at all. So it's actually after page 11 in the report. There's it's titled Figure 7. It's the NHESP priority habitat graphic, and that'll illustrate where some of those areas are.
Are they?
They're down in the runway 24 end.
Is it the red area?
Correct.
So there's 3 areas. Okay.
There's 3 areas, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing tree clearing in all of those 3 areas.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with what Ms. Gibbs was saying earlier about depredation, I believe was the word she used. And so I don't think the projects we're doing have any bearing, or that would have any bearing on the projects we're doing, based on where these red areas are.
Correct. Yeah, frankly, Mr. Chairman, it's a very, very, very small square footage within the priority habitat area. And actually, it's in the buffer to that priority habitat area. But nonetheless, coordination is to be had with NHESP as we move along in this process.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. You got one more.
Again, this is logistics or whatever. Within this EA draft, again, you have the 4 options that were presented as far as cutting trees down, et cetera, et cetera. I have a minor issue with the description or the way that alternative 1, no action alternative, has been described. There are many people, most especially residents whose property surrounding the airport, who believe this is the best option. And I mean, and I understand, Matt, that you're giving all the positives for the option that the commission chose, but this description of option 1, no action, is so negative it's not even funny. And I would like to have that somehow rewritten. And I within the context, there's a bullet in there that talks about the shorter landing distances. Well, my understanding is that the commission chose, I believe it's option 3 for the mitigation as far as the approach, et cetera, et cetera. That particular approach minimally requires that the runways be at least 200 feet longer. And has a sponsor yet sent a request to the FAA with regards to this variance needed in order for that to be implemented?
I can speak to that, Mr. Chairman. So there is no, I believe you're trying to cite a modification to standard. So no, we have worked with FAA flight procedures, and flight procedures has come back and said that they can implement a GPS approach with the current runway length at 3,001 feet. There would not be a requirement to get an additional 200 feet. So there is no variance, as you put it, or modification to standard that would be required from the FAA.
Okay. Is there any way that the description of this first one can be amended before it's submitted? I would like that.
Why?
I guess I don't know exactly what you mean by amending the description. If you could be a little bit more specific, I might be able to address your question.
Assumptions: the airport does not secure documents, permissions, et cetera, et cetera. It says the airport does not conduct tree clearing activities within the airport protected services. It can, Matt. I mean, all of this is negative. It says that the airport and town failed to comply with the FAA design and safety standards. Well, by God, the airport has, and this is the contention of a lot of the people that live around here, myself included, the airport's been in existence for over 50 years. there've been no serious accidents except for regarding what is that skydive stuff where the guy tanked it in the pond and some other stuff there. With the standards that are currently at the airport. And
can I address your first question? Can I address the first part, which was the assumptions? So just so that you're clear, so that the alternative one, the no action alternative, that's your baseline alternative to compare other alternatives against, i.e. the airport commission, quote unquote, does nothing. They don't take any action.
Okay.
So that's why I say the airport wouldn't go and secure permissions, rights, documents to do future tree clearing, and the airport commission doesn't pursue tree clearing activities. That's your baseline. They do nothing. That's a do nothing alternative.
Well, within that alternative, would there have been, and again, this is in hindsight, but would there have been some opportunity for some minimal amount of clearing that are needed?
Well, that's what some of the other alternatives get into.
Understanding that the status quo at the airport for the last 50 years has sufficiently had no accidents. And you're asking for additional airspace for the GPA approach. And that's
I
just would like to have this rewritten.
Well, let me try to clarify a little bit here. Anytime you put through alternatives for things, you have to start with a basic, as Mr. Karen said, a basic baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this, even though it says alternative one, that's our baseline, that all the other alternatives are judged against or based against, if you want. So we have to start somewhere, and so the no action, if we just did absolutely nothing, this is and he laid out what the assumptions are and then what the impacts on the airport would be if we did absolutely nothing. Now, granted, there are people in town who would very much like us to do nothing, but unfortunately, we're going to be in violation of our grant assurances. We're going to be reducing safety at the airport if we do nothing. And so we have these other alternatives now, and the environmental assessment addressing those alternatives so that we can move forward to deal with safety issues and take care of that, those types of situations in a way that is least intrusive to the area. I hope I said that okay, Mr. Karen. I just think that we've got a baseline, and that's where we go from.
You do, and I think to what Susan's asking, I mean, there's alternative 2, alternative 3, and alternative 4 that all three of those speak to approaches and clearing as well. So they sort of build up to alternative 4. And I'm not sure if you had a chance to read those or not.
I did.
Okay.
Great. Again, and I don't want to rehash this back so far, but I remember when I was a civilian and going to airport commission meetings, and when the commission was choosing which option to take, at that point, Miss Commissioner Donovan was the chairman. And I stood up as an audience member and I said, is there anything that I can say to make or allow the commission to change their decision? And he said no. And I'll let it go at that.
Okay, thank you very much for your input. We appreciate it.
Sure you do.
I beg your pardon?
I'm talking to myself, Huntley. Thank you. I appreciate your. I thank you.
Please mute your mic if you're going to talk to yourself. Let's see. Next is Commissioner Galen. You're next on my list. You got to unmute. Got to unmute. Sorry.
Just a quick point. We are right now not in compliance with FAA regs based on the approaches we have, because we basically haven't done our work for the last several years. We've allowed the trees to encroach. So doing nothing just keeps us in violation. That's the bottom. That's the fact. And unfortunately, I know many people would like that because they believe then runway displacement threshold will occur. Well, that would be, in my work and research with the FAA, that would just be the first step. There are other things the FAA would probably do because they would not take kindly to us being in breach of grant assurances revolving around the work they paid for concerning that 3,000-foot runway. And even if the displaced threshold did occur, it would not stop a single Pilatus from landing because the amount of runway lost would not impact their ability to use this airport, which is one of the goals I know of people that want displaced thresholds. So not doing something is really not a viable alternative. To openly flout FAA regulations, basically be in breach of a contract.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I would like to interject, please. We have been getting grant assurances from the FAA for the last, I don't know how many years, with the airport as status quo. And I'm not suggesting that it stay as status quo. I believe that there needs to be some mitigation as far as trees go. But I believe that the option that the Airport Commission accepted is more excessive than it needs to be. And I'm not even suggesting it should be alternative one with nothing, but.
Oh, okay. I mean, we haven't gone ahead with anything. We have no plan on the table. No, we haven't. Until we actually put putting a project in a plan does not commit us to a project. Just doesn't.
How do we get the money for the master plan?
We got the money for the plan, not for the project.
Plan. That's not for the project.
There's a lot of steps before we even get to the project.
Okay, Commissioner Cortese.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Harrison. I just want to say, the trees and first of all, I think it's great news that we have less trees and they can be individual and isolated. That's the really good news. And also, if we had been running with the town bylaw and taking care of the trees in the first place, we wouldn't be even having this discussion. So we're kind of playing behind the playing catch up here. This is something that, needs to be enforced going forward, I believe. And thank you so much, Mr. Karen, for your great report here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I wonder if the gentleman from the FAA, Mr. Doucette, would have any comments. If not, that's fine. But if he's there and would like to comment on any of this conversation, please feel free.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There seems to be some confusion about the public comment process. The document that you have in front of you is an internal draft or administrative draft. It's not a public draft, but because you're a public body, the public gets the document, so it feels like a public document. But as far as I'm concerned, it's internal to the Airport Commission. I've already looked at it. I've worked with Matt to develop the draft, the internal draft. Once you give us the okay and say it's good, you're good to go with whatever version you want, immediately after that, a public notice will be created and the public comment period will start. Then I would assume the Airport Commission would have a public meeting at one of your regular scheduled meetings or a separate meeting, and there'll be an opportunity for public to comment in the meeting or in writing, via mail or email or whatever method people like. And it's only after that point that the document becomes final. The only reason we have a public comment period is so that we can incorporate those comments into the final document. And the document is not final until after the public comment period, and the Airport Commission and the FAA and Mass DOT review them and incorporate any of the comments that need to be included. So if you were to tell us the draft is fine as it is as a draft, today or tomorrow, then the public comment period will start in a couple of days, whatever amount of time it takes just to submit the public notice to the local newspaper. And then there'll be the public comment period. So I just wanted to make it clear sort of how the process works. I've already looked at every word in the document. So as a draft, the document is fine with me as it is.
So, thank you. So if we vote to send this discussion draft to the FAA, we will, and you all look at it, if there are no further comments on it this evening, and the FAA looks at it and decides that we're going to go with it, we will get a letter. And as of the date of that letter, or when we publish that letter, I guess, the public comment period would open.
That's not the way I would describe it.
Okay.
If you think the document is okay right now as a draft, then Matt will work up a public notice. Once that public notice appears in the local newspaper, the public comment period starts. Because I am good with the document as it sits right now. So if you are, then everybody's good with it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we got the process correct. That for not for only for the commission's edification, but also for the public. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments? I see Commissioner Cortese, I see your hand up. Do you have a question?
Just a quick comment from a pilot's perspective. As an analogy to shortening a runway, if you picture and put it in the sense of being on an automobile and a multi-lane highway, you can either be out on that multi-lane highway with 2 or 3 cars distance in front of you and around you, or you can be in that highway when there's congested traffic and there's less than a half a car length in front or behind you. It doesn't stop you from going on that highway, but what it does what does increase is the risk. So by shortening the runway, all you're doing is increasing the risk. In my opinion, you're not going to change traffic patterns or habits. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I see Mr. Whalen, Terry.
Yeah, I just had this is Terry Whalen, just a quick process comment. So just doing some quick math on the comment period. So if say it were issued as, as soon as Monday the 17th, or sometime thereafter, I guess the commission needs to think, or I don't know if Matt, what your recommendation or Mr. Doucette's recommendation on whether the commission should have a special meeting earlier in the period, in the comment period, because that's, that would put him at about 21 days into the comment period, or if that's, important or not. So just something to consider in there. I don't know what is the best course based on the interest in the project on having, a public meeting sooner or later in the comment period. Just throwing that out there. I don't know what the advice would be from either FAA or Matt on that.
There's no specific requirement as to when the public meeting should be. Typically, the comment period is approximately 30 days. It could be as long as you want it to be. And typically, the public meeting is somewhere in the middle of that. But there's no specific requirements in the regulations that say how long it needs to be or where the meeting needs to be. So that's up to your meeting schedule.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, our June meeting is on the 9th. I was just looking it up. It's a kind of a short time period with respect to the month of June. So it's real early. I think to give the public enough time to comment, we may just throw this out as a possibility that we may have our regular June meeting and then maybe have a special meeting either toward the end of June or at our regular meeting in July, giving extra time for the public comment. I don't know. I'll have to think this through, and I'll talk with Matt about it offline and see where we go with that. I'm not quite sure what the best would be.
Hey, Huntley, that's fine. I'd be happy to work with you on timing, but that does not preclude us, again, as Richard said, if the commission is satisfied with the draft document this evening.
Nope, I lost you. You just went mute. You just went mute. There you go.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
My apologies. I was just going to say that, yeah, while we figure out what date you're going to do your next meeting, whether it be the regularly scheduled commission meeting in June or whether it be a special meeting, that won't prohibit us or preclude us from getting this draft document up on the town's website ASAP.
Okay. All right. And then we can figure out enough time for people to review it and get comments back to us. Because it's
Correct.
important, and I know there are a lot of people who I know would like to comment on it, and so I think we need to do our due diligence with that. Thank you. Mr. Galen.
Mr. Doucette, are you still on?
Yes, I just had to run and get a power cord and plug my laptop.
That's okay. A quick question about, again, when we go through the public comment period and we gather comments both in person and via email, are they submitted as supplements to the document, or are they incorporated into the document by the commission?
It's actually both. There's no requirement that there be specific point-by-point responses in the document, but sometimes that is done. There's no requirement that the comments be appended to the document, but often that is done. So there's in an EA, as opposed to an EIS, that's much more prescriptive. There's a lot of leeway on how you handle comments, because often there are relatively few comments. And all that's important is that there's an opportunity for public comment and that the FAA and the Airport Commission incorporate them as best they can. And exactly how we do it and how we publish the document is there's no specific requirements as to exactly how you do it.
Okay. And the final publication, is that an FAA operation, or is that a joint one between the FAA and the commission?
It is a joint document. My signature will be on the cover of the document. And once I sign it, it's a federal document, but it is always a municipal document as well. So it's a joint document.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this, or are we ready to vote to send the discussion draft to and entertain a motion to vote to send the discussion draft to the FAA for their approval? Any further discussion? Is it yes, Mr.
No,
Galen?
I'm ready to make the motion.
Oh, go ahead, make the motion.
I move that we take the next step, which is having Matt prepare a public announcement based on the draft and what Mr. Doucette said, so we can move the process along with the public comment period.
Second.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
MC? Okay, thank you. Roll call. Commissioner Burke? Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox?
One question. I believe Mr. Galen did not include submitting this thing to the FAA.
No, I didn't, because based on what Mr. Doucette said, we're past that at this point. Now it's a
Right.
point of getting it out for public comment
Okay,
once we've gone through it.
thank you. I'll hold my vote.
I might have used that term, and I apologize. Okay, and then Commissioner Wilcox, you approve or not?
I'm just going to abstain right now.
Okay, and Commissioner Harrison approves. So we have, our vote is 6-0-1. Okay, thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman?
much. Yes, sir.
One last comment that I'd like to make is when there's I think a lot of interest not only in the projects in the EA but the process, and it might, if anyone wants to, I'm happy to entertain questions one-on-one about what the process is, how the FAA does NEPA. So I'm happy to provide my email address. It's richard.doucette, D-O-U-C-E-T-T-E @faa.gov. So if anybody has any questions about what an EA is, how we do the process, I'd be happy to take those questions and deal with them one-on-one. And that way, maybe there'll be fewer process questions, at your next meeting. And then all the questions can be about the project itself and not the process. But I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments people have via email, richard.doucette@fa.gov.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. All right. We have, I think there's one more part to the engineer's report on the closeout of the master plan, I believe, Mr. Karen, am I correct?
I don't have anything on the master plan this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, so I need a motion to accept the engineer's report.
Motion to accept.
Do I have a second? Okay, and that is MCG. Okay, roll call. Here we go. Commissioner Burke.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. So 7-0. Thank you very much. Moving on, we have the professional consultant services for the airport planning and development projects. We sent out a request for qualifications after the last meeting, and the commissioners had time to review the process and the selection of the consultant and the recommendation for that. So I think I'll turn the meeting over to either Commissioner Burke or Commissioner Wilcox to present their reports. And who wants to go first? Well, just do it alphabetically. Commissioner Burke, go ahead. What was your finding?
Can everybody hear me okay?
There's some static in your, there's static in your mic.
Yeah, I know. I tried with Terry to clear it, and we can't.
All right, we'll do the best we can, but go ahead.
Yeah. Apparently the only entity to send a request for qualifications back was the Gale Associates. And in their packet, they listed a number of airports and clients to check on, which I did. Asked a series of questions, how long they had a relationship with Gale, had Gale completed all their assignments, how would they rate their competence, do they keep track of subs, did they meet all project deadlines, were there any overruns, did the representatives identify potential problems, and how would you overall characterize the performance? Without exception, they had their experiences ranged from 1 year to 15 plus years. They all had exemplary, the highest superlative comments for Gale Associates, scores of 10. They gave them a 10 with one exception, an 8. Everything was finished on time. Everything was finished on the budget. The Fitchburg Airport indicated that Gale had found an issue that actually saved them $80,000 that they had not had been expecting. So they were extremely. So all of them had nothing but the best to say, and I would add it consistent with my experience with Matt and with the company too. But we contacted Bedford Airport, Mansfield Airport, Fitchburg, Gardner did not respond. Sanford, Seacoast, and Maine, Nashua Airport, and Auburn, Lewiston did not. But they were unanimous in their glowing high mark for Gale Associates.
And that was all, what you just said was all in the spreadsheet that is in our package, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And the questions are listed in the package on, at least a sample is on the, in the package. So if people in the public want to look at that, the questions are there and the answers that Commissioner Burke received from the various references are listed in the spreadsheet in our package. So anyone have any questions? All right.
I don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment to say thank you, Commissioner Burke. That was a great report. And thank you for doing all the legwork on that. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Wilcox, do you have anything to add from I know you had some difficulty with the process, but do you have anything that you'd like to add? You're muted. I'm sorry. You're muted.
Unfortunately, there were some major communication issues with regards to responsibilities that I had with this project. I had thought that, or had hoped that there'd been more than one company applying for this position or this new position. And the fact that we got paperwork, 4 pages of companies that sent some sort of initial inquiry into the process, and there was no follow-up to contacting them to make sure they got paperwork in a timely basis. I was disappointed in that, and I'll just let it go at that.
Okay. Frankly, just to clarify, I believe that it's their responsibility to follow up and not ours with them.
Again, maybe, I don't know, the deadline may have been some issues. I did call a couple of the companies and there was some question about it, but I'm not going to go into that now, Huntley.
Well, if you have anything, you could send me in an email what those issues were. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, do I have a motion for the
Yeah, I move that the commission select Gale Associates as the most responsive firm meeting the criteria provided. And they provide the services identified in the RFQ.
Okay. Do I have a second for the motion? And then we can have further discussion.
I second the motion.
Okay. Hang on. Is there any further discussion before I take a vote?
Yes.
Go ahead. Yep.
I just want to say in my years on the commission, I have been impressed by the professionalism, thoroughness, efficiency, and responsiveness of everyone from Gale and Associates that we've worked with. And there have been at least 5 that I've worked with in my time on the commission. I'm glad that they responded to the RFQ and the desire to come back. And I'm really happy with this motion that's on the table now for them repeating it and continuing as our engineering consultancy.
And Commissioner Wilcox, a comment?
Yes, a comment. When I was initially asked to do this, my thought was, why don't we just keep Gale? And I do appreciate all the hard work that Matt's been doing because it's been a tough haul. But I just want to interject in conjunction to what Commissioner Cortese just said. He said that we're choosing the best option. We only had one option, sir. There was only one response because that was what was put on the board. Thank you.
I believe I said as the most responsive, but I agree with your assessment of Gale Associates. I think they've been great over the years, and I've had experiences with them in other airports, and they've been equally as good, responsive.
Okay.
Ask queries.
Okay. So I think we're ready. We have a motion on the floor, which has been seconded. So we're ready for a roll call vote to accept Gale as our engineer for the next, I believe it's a 5-year term. And so I will entertain, well, I can't entertain a vote. I got a call. So Commissioner Burke.
Yes.
You in favor? Yes? Okay. Commissioner Cortese, yes, no?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Galen,
Yes.
Commissioner Owens,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox. You were muted, sorry. Just shake your head. Okay, we got a yes, a thumbs up, okay. And Commissioner Harrison, yes. So Gail will be our engineer going forward, Gale and Associates, and I think that's, given our past experience with them, I think that's absolutely the right way to go. They have the experience, they've been involved with us, I will say, through thick and thin. And I appreciate the work that Matt has done, and Nick Ippolito, and the other people at Gale, and including Armand Dufresne and all the others. I can mention some first names, but that wouldn't people wouldn't know who they are. But anyway, it's been a terrific experience working with them. I'm glad we're going ahead with it. Mr. Karen.
Huntley, I just wanted to thank everybody for their support. We certainly appreciate working with the Airport Commission and are looking forward to some of the challenges that lie ahead, and hopefully, doing the best job that we can for the Airport Commission. We just appreciate your support, and thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. We have one more thing to do with regard to this, and that is we need to send to the town manager the fact that we have voted that Gale be our professional consultant services going forward. So I need someone to make a motion on that, please.
Yeah, I move that the commission send the recommendation to the town manager to initiate executing a contract with Gale Associates for professional consulting services as soon as possible.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, roll call vote on sending this to the town manager for her signature. Commissioner Burke.
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes, it carries 7-0. Thank you very, very much, everybody. All right. We have the non-directional beacon, the contract with MassDOT. They are ending their funding as of June 30th. Let me get my paperwork out here so we can go through this. And we would be required to pick up the cost of maintenance for the NDB going forward, starting in July of 2021. I think it's important that we have the non-directional beacon active. I think you saw in your package that it costs approximately, well, not approximately, well, the bill for the FAA was $682. And I would suspect that the bill would be the same or something similar for us going forward on a monthly basis. We need to have the NDB for inclement weather approaches. We already have an approach out over the water, which is a GPS approach, what they call an RNAV approach, and but the non-directional beacon is a very helpful navigational aid to get pilots into the airport in certainly in less than good weather, and it can be used anytime. So I think we need to support this and continue paying for it until we get alternate approaches, hopefully in the future. So I've got some hands up. I've got the first one I see here is Susan Wilcox. Go ahead.
No, sorry.
Okay, moving on, Commissioner Galen.
I would like to make a motion to do just that. To assume.
Okay. All right, I can make a motion, we can second it, and then we can have discussion if that's okay with Commissioner Cortese.
Yep, second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just want to make a comment that it's also a benefit for the military who have been using the approach to test their older equipment. And I've used it I use it predominantly to come in. I'm
Go ahead.
hoping for better approaches one day, but that's what we've got right now.
Yep. Okay.
Chairman.
Commissioner Galen?
Can I just clarify the motion, which is I move that the Chatham Airport Commission assume the maintenance of the non-directional beacon for fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2022.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on it from anyone? I think it's important that we have this. I think I mentioned that earlier. It provides the pilots an extra element of safety as they come into the airport, like I said, in less than good weather or even in good weather. So I think it's something that behooves us to approve. So we've got a motion, we've got a second, and roll call. Commissioner Burke? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison says yes. The motion carries 7-0. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Chair?
And I believe we have one more that we need to vote on. We applied to the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for in their aeronautics division under their airport safety maintenance program and their grant assurances for a boundary survey. This is with regard to the area on the back fence line at the end of runway 2024, so that we could know exactly where our property line is, and the back area there, it's Mr. Kelsey's land, so we're not intruding on his property. So we needed to have the property line surveyed. But while we were doing that, I thought it would be a good idea to go out around the Fisherman storage area and find out where the markers are in the woods in the back as you face northeast in the back right corner of the Fisherman storage area, and then over to Wilford Road, and then back toward the airport along Wilford Road. So we applied for the money. It was approved, but we have to take a vote tonight to authorize me to sign off on the grant assurances for the project, saying that we will adhere to those grant assurances. And of course, those were in the package. And I think if you have them open in front of you or are familiar, it was page 11 of that document, where it says, in witness whereof, the Airport Commission and the town manager of the town of Chatham certify that the information contained herein and attached hereto is accurate and complete, and that we agree with the assurances herein as represented by the signatures of the persons below. So you just need to, if you notice in the first box on the right, the reporting secretary, who in this case will be either Mr. Galen or Mr. Whalen signing this, is to certify that I am the chairman of the Airport Commission, and that the vote to go along with the assurances that are listed here was voted on. So that's basically what this is. It's basically a pro forma thing that we need to do to move forward with this. The money, like I said, has been approved. It's not very much. It's for the surveyors. I think it's under $4,000, and I think I think it'd be wise, depending on where we go with the Fisherman storage area and what we might have planned for that area in the future, to have those property markers indicated appropriately. Okay. Any questions on that? Susan, yes?
I have a question. It's not on that, but I'd like to pose a question before the meeting's closed.
Well,
Not-
that's fine, but let's take.
No, I
take
understand.
first.
Yes, thank you.
I wasn't going to shut everyone down. Don't worry. Okay, so let's, can we get a motion to authorize me to execute the grant assurances, please?
I
Motion.
move that the Chatham Airport Commission authorizes the chair to execute state grant assurances for ASMP project number 2021-CQX-06.
Do I have a second? Second, Susan Wilcox. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Burke.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Thank you. Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes, it carries 7-0. Thank you very much. I will sign the document as soon as I have it in my hand. I believe Terry Whalen has it ready for me, and we will get that moved on. So any last comments from commissioners? Susan, you had something, I think?
This is backtracking a little bit. We never really covered anything in the wildlife hazard management plan. And I just have 3 questions. How's the commission going to implement all of the plans that have been requested within this particular document? What are the timelines on completion? Again, in here it says everything should have been completed last year, so that's incorrect. And then how are the projects going to be funded?
Well, my best answer to you there is we're taking on a project by project basis. That's the best I can do. You know, if a project comes up and we need wildlife mitigation, we can do that on a project by project basis. Certain things may have to happen right away. And I see Mr. Karen's hand up, so I think he'll provide a clarification for you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, all I was going to add is, so the document needs to be a living, breathing document. It's not like the wildlife hazard issues are going to go away, particularly all at once. So what I'd be willing to do is I can talk with GZA, who is the author of that document, and the environmentalist that pulled it together, to perhaps at a future commission meeting, come and speak to the commission, work with the commission, and talk about implementation of such project. But funding would probably be somewhat limited from an AIP perspective, as not all of that, sort of actions that are proposed in there are eligible for AIP funds. But at some point in the future, if you'd like the consultant on that to come in and speak to that, I'd be happy to pull them in.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
When we get to that point, and it might dovetail nicely with the EA discussion, perhaps.
Yep.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you very much. So having no other business, can I ask for a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Cortese, adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, before we go, I want to thank you all for your time and efforts and reading through the EA document this evening and the other documents that we had. It was a lot to digest and understand. I know we had a lot on our plate tonight, but we've moved forward, and I think we're moving forward in a very positive direction. And I thank you all for your efforts and consideration with everything. And I think selecting Gale, I know no other companies sent their RFQs back. They didn't respond. I don't know why. I know a lot of companies sent information, replied to the RFQ, but then when push came to shove, they never sent anything in. And that, as I said earlier, that was on them to send back if they really wanted to get involved. So I really appreciate the fact that Gale actually did send us something I think the continuity of having them with us going forward is extremely important. And, I think that was a good decision. I also think the decision about the NDB was good. I think some of the pilots who might be listening tonight are probably happy about that we're going to continue the maintenance of that and not shut it down. And going forward, that'll be hopefully an interim an interim solution prior to us, hopefully getting a better approach in here in the future, which is what we're aiming for, among other things listed in the master plan. So again, I appreciate everyone's hard work on this and your interest in doing what we're doing. And I'll call roll call, and we can adjourn in a minute or two. Commissioner Burke, for adjournment.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. And, Big Tim, thank you very much for the manager's report tonight. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. And good night, all. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help.